In 2015, a person was driving through an Irish forest at night, right on the border between County Laois and County Offaly, when they took a wrong turn and got lost. They pulled over and tried to figure out where they were, when they saw something moving ahead in the car's headlights. Coming out of the forest from the left was a huge, white, wolf-like creature that stopped in the middle of the road and stared with bright blue eyes. The encounter lasted about 10 seconds, and when the animal went back into the forest, the person left in a hurry. Okay, so just a little bit of background information on dire wolves. This comes from a few different sources, mostly the Dire Wolf Project. They were a species of animal that went extinct allegedly about 12 to 13,000 years ago, so the end of the last ice age, I guess you could say. Their common name is still direwolf, but a study in 2021 examining their mitochondrial DNA discovered that they actually diverged from the lineage of true wolves about 5.6 million years ago. So the grey wolves of today are more related to jackals, coyotes, and African wild dogs than dire wolves. But I guess people didn't realize that because the skeletons of the two look so similar, like a dire wolf and a grey wolf. They look like very similar. There are a few differences. Usually the dire wolf seems to have smaller feet, a larger skull, and generally heavier build. So in a lot of like fiction, like Game of Thrones and stuff, a dire wolf is just a giant wolf. But according to the Dire Wolf Project and a few other videos, like I was watching PBS Eons on a few other, their average was about 130 pounds or about 60 kilos, with some estimates of their upper limit going up to about 175 pounds or nearly 80 kilos, which compared to grey wolves isn't really that much bigger. There are some like grey wolves that seem to be recorded close to like even the upper limits, but I think the average is a little higher. So generally a little bigger, but not by a lot.
So I have a few questions about that. So are you saying that in Game of Thrones, the direwolves are not accurate?
Yes.
My second question is, in Twilight, are those big wolves that Bella can like ride on and, they're really, really big, like the size of like taller than a person, a human. Are those also not accurate?
Yes.
Oh, what a disappointment. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean they're I don't see a very big difference in size. I think it's just like a little heavier.
Right. So why are they called dire then? Because it's like dire if you see them?
I can't remember why, I'm sorry.
All right.
So, supposedly they went extinct thousands of years ago. However, as you heard from the intro, there have been some sightings, and for some reason they seem to be specifically in Ireland, in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So there was the one I mentioned from 2015 on the border of Laois and Offaly in the Republic, but also in Northern Ireland in County Fermanagh. There was a sighting in 2012, allegedly, of multiple hikers, local hikers, that said they saw these big wolves with big heads in some of the forests around Fermanagh.
Yeah. So we decided to investigate this because we were in the area anyway, and we were like, let's go see if we can find a cryptid today and give our listeners something juicy. So we went out and we went for a little hike in the area. I believe they said they saw the wolves in a forest, so we went to a forest.
Yeah, and the forest we chose was sort of aptly named Big Dog Forest.
Yeah. So we went to Big Dog Forest looking for big dogs. And let me tell you, well, should we tell? First, we'll explain. So we went on a little hike and there was a lot of deforestation. Lots of trees had been cut down and then they were being replanted. They were quite small. Looked almost like they were being planted in order to be cut down. So not a great habitat.
Yeah, no, even when I was trying to decide which forest to go to, because there's multiple forests in Fermanagh that are kind of connected, it seems like. Going on like Google Maps and Google Earth and flying over it, it was like, these don't look like very thick forests. They seem pretty sparse. Like there's there's trees here and there, but a lot of it seems to be like marshland and just open fields and stuff.
Yeah, so to be clear, wolves can live in marshland and open fields, but we didn't see any deer, and there should have been a lot of deer that we would have seen because if they're eating them, then like there should be enough that we would see one. Also, we didn't really see a lot of hiding places for them to be.
Yeah. Sorry, just to be clear, there are known deer in the area, but we're just saying there wasn't, like, the fact that we didn't see any means that there's probably not a lot of deer. So probably not enough to sustain them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So would you, if you would like, you can listen to our recordings from our time in the field. We did a few like in the field voice recordings, so we can play those now.
Yeah. And we got a few visuals to show you too.
So we're walking around in the forest, and there's a place where there's a bunch of new growth. I don't know enough about trees to know how old they are, but a lot of them seem very young. And considering the story seems to be from 2014 of the last reported sighting, it's possible that the habitat has really changed since the wolves were seen. So maybe they'd be gone now if they were here. So we got to the top of a ridge. We're not going to do the full loop because why not? Because there's not much point.
It's all the same terrain, sparse trees, mostly marshland.
Yeah, and there aren't too many places where wolves could hide. I mean, there's some thick forest to the left of us, so it's possible. But really, there's not much else we can see, unless we got very lucky, I suppose. But at the top of this ridge, we did find a little secret path going off to the right, so we're going to go on that now.
Yep.
See what we can see. Also, I've been eating gingerbread cookies, which I know drive certain dogs crazy, so I thought the smell of the ginger would bring the wolves here. So far, it has not worked.
This might be the last trip you hear from us.
Right. And I don't know how you're going to get this recording, if that's true, but...
This is the rescue team are listening to it.
Yes, okay. And there does seem to be a lot of human interference with this habitat, as in logging. Looks like logging, and then replanting trees in a sort of monoculture, so I don't know about that.
Unless there's some conspiracy afoot.
Oh, yeah. There's also a building on top of a hill, which looks like a castle. Could be someone living in there. All right, and at the top of this little path, you get to an overlook. You can see the lake, and you can see up to the top of the hill where there's a sort of stone, like an exposed cliff. So you can imagine big direwolves here, but there aren't so many places for them to hide. However, considering we're the only people here, I mean, maybe not a lot of people come here. Any final thoughts?
Just that when we crested the hill again, we're looking at another hill in this forest that is completely empty of trees, basically.
Yeah, but remember that wolves don't just need trees. Like, they also like open space. But we haven't seen any deer either. And
There technically are deer in the area.
But if they're gonna be supporting like a bunch of dire wolves, I feel like there needs to be more deer.
Yeah. I mean,
Enough that we could have seen one.
Or deer scat or something.
Yeah. All right. Those are our thoughts for now. So standing at the top of the hill where the wind is coming from pretty much all directions and it feels very spooky up here, I'm going to do a test howl and see if anyone responds.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very good.
Well, when we did howls to other non-dire wolves, they did respond to howls, usually.
Did we do the howls?
Well, a bunch of us. But humans were able to do it and get the wolves.
Okay. Well, here I go. Woo! sound like a howl to you?
Yeah.
Okay. We hear nothing in response.
It's eerily quiet, actually.
It is really quiet. I mean, it's like we're in the middle of nowhere. Okay. Thanks for listening to that. So, yeah, that was our first expedition. Do you have any final thoughts about our expedition?
I mean, it was pretty cool. We went there. We were like the only people there, right?
Yeah, the only people in the whole park. It felt like a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah, and it was pretty quiet. It was misty. It was cold, but it felt like it was appropriate weather to find a strange creature.
Yeah, for real. Like a direwolf would come out on a cold, misty day. They wouldn't come out on a nice summer day when everyone's hiking.
Yeah, because it seemed like the appropriate time. Didn't really see any signs of any animals, really.
Yeah, so if we're gonna talk about cryptid court, like, what do we think? Do we think that the direwolves could be out there?
So I have a little theory about this.
All right.
So let's assume that all these sightings were true.
Okay.
The sightings, by the way, I'll just cite my sources, come from unexplaineduniverse.ie, so an Irish website. So let's just assume they're true for a second.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out, okay, so like 10,000 years ago or 12,000 years ago, it's not that long ago, do we have any, like, were dire wolves known to inhabit Ireland? And I don't know if they were, because when I looked up more about dire wolves, apparently there's maybe two species, and they're like, I have it written down here, sorry. The eastern dire wolf in eastern regions of North America, and the western counterpart on the western parts of North America.
So the direwolf wasn't in Europe at all?
I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if it was in Ireland at least, because most of them are found around the La Brea tar pits. That's where there's like, I think they have over 4,000.
But I thought that direwolves were from Europe because Game of Thrones, like, not that Game of Thrones is a scientific source, but they have direwolves, and I thought it was like a thing that was there in the past in Europe, and that was why Martin used direwolves in his book.
I only focused on Ireland. Let me see if there were any in Europe. So on Nature, it says Pleistocene America.
Well, it looks like wolves and their most recent ancestor with coyotes and dholes evolved in Europe or Eurasia anyway. That says there's no evidence for gene flow between direwolves and gray wolves or coyotes.
Again, the dire wolves split from gray wolves 5 million years ago.
The University of Oxford says the direwolf is not just a Game of Thrones fantasy, it's a fearsome, distinct, but extinct canine. It says they were real creatures and roamed the American landscape. They were ubiquitous in America. Whoa. So George R. R. Martin was lying to me?
Well, I mean, it's just his version is basically a fantasy creature.
Yeah, but I pictured like direwolves as the same sort of thing as one of those giant deer from Europe, or like I pictured them in the sort of Scandinavian, Northern European Ice Age landscape.
I mean, it could be that, they just haven't really been found yet, and that, like, La Brea is just a good place to find fossils.
There's some fossil that was found in northeastern China, and that is not America. A late Pleistocene fossil from northeastern China is the first record of the direwolf in Eurasia. This is a study in Elsevier. What was it? 2021? Fossils of direwolves are very rare. Yeah, and this is a report of the first one in Eurasia, near the city of Harbin. Well, well, well. Well, well, well. Well, I don't know if any other studies corroborate this.
Yeah, so from the current knowledge, the likelihood of them having been in Ireland doesn't seem particularly high.
Okay, but what if they became extinct in North America and they swam or rafted to Ireland, a new haven for them?
Maybe, but what I was going to say, again, if we were going to assume that these were true, is that the grey wolf used to exist in Ireland up till, I think, the 1700s, so a few hundred years ago. And considering there's not a massive size difference, really, I mean, I don't know if someone could eyeball a weight difference between these two. Wouldn't it be more likely that if these cryptid wolves are around, that they were just some kind of regular wolves?
Listen, people don't want regular things, they want big things. People want to see big wolves, dire wolves, like, you know, that's more important than being scientifically accurate.
Well, then the other thing is, just thinking about like big gray wolves, it seems like the biggest ones are the ones in like maybe Western Alaska where they can hunt like moose and have a lot of prey, and that's why they're bigger than like wolves in other parts of America. So I don't know how these extra large wolves would, like Ireland doesn't seem to like the place for the biggest wolves to be.
Well, there are sheep, lots of sheep. They can eat the sheep and the cows.
No, that's the big cats are eating them.
Ah, well, they can share.
Yeah. Well, that's assuming if it's true. But then the other thing is these two sightings are so vague and strange. Like the one that I read at the beginning, it doesn't even say like anything about the person. Like I have no idea what age they were or who they were or why they're so anonymous and how they got the sighting out.
They're afraid. They don't want the wolf to find out they've been spreading rumors about him.
It's like in the show We Want to Speak to the Wolf. And then even in the one from Anna, local hikers said that they saw this, but it didn't like make news or anything.
Interesting.
So what do you think?
I don't think that there are dire wolves in Ireland, given all this information. It's probably just sensationalized sightings of a dog, and if there's anything out there, it's definitely going to be a gray wolf, not a dire wolf.
And then the other thing is, when you search like dire wolves in Ireland, they're like, oh, come and visit and pet these dire wolves because they're the wolves or whatever they were on Game of Thrones that you can go and see. And there's tours because Game of Thrones was shot in Northern Ireland, or some of it was, probably most of the dire wolf stuff. And I wonder if because dire wolves became popular in culture around that time, that all of a sudden,
Wait, can you actually go and pet the dire wolves that were used in the filming?
apparently,
What? So it says you can meet the wolves that were used in the filming. So are these the wolves or the dogs?
they look like dogs from the pictures. They look like kind of a husky or something.
That's nice. But they're not dire wolves.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's been put back into the culture.
Interesting. Did we also, sorry, to change the subject, but did we ever record a podcast about going to Lake Champlain?
Did we?
I don't know. Remind us if you're listening to this. Did we ever talk about how we went on another expedition to Lake Champlain to look for the look for Champy? If not, we'll talk about it next time.
Oh yes, this is actually our second cryptid expedition.
Oops. Believe me, the Lake Champlain expedition was very exciting. You will not want to miss what we found there.
You won't believe what happens next. Okay, so we wrap up this cryptid court.
Yeah. So I guess the verdict is direwolf no. At least in Ireland. Could be out there somewhere else.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel for full episodes or download the MP3 from the links below.